It was kind of depressing because you're like graduating from Harvard, and then I was like in my parents' house in Atlanta, like unemployed.
A Harvard graduate, unemployed for over a year, living back in her parents' house in Atlanta. And when asked how it felt, she said, "Depressing." Context: the promise that built a generation. For most of the 20th century, the deal was simple, and it held. You work hard in school, you get the degree, and the degree gets you the job. Not a dream job necessarily, but a real one, a stable one that paid enough to build something on. Parents believed it, teachers repeated it, entire families reorganized their finances around it, and for a long time, the data backed it up. In 2010, young college graduates in the United States had an unemployment rate 6 percentage points lower than their peers who had not attended university. That gap was not just a statistic. It was the entire argument for spending 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars on higher education. The degree was the differentiation, the signal that separated you from everyone else in the applicant pool. By 2024, that gap had collapsed to a single percentage point. Recent graduates, between 22 and 27, now face an unemployment rate of 5.8%, nearly double the rate for all degree-holding workers across all age groups. 23% of Harvard students were jobless 3 months after graduating, not community college students, not students from struggling regional universities. Harvard graduates. Something structural has shifted. And the story of why it happened is more complicated and more unsettling than most people want to admit. Problem: what broke A&D when? The first instinct when hearing these numbers is to blame the economy. Companies are not hiring. The demand for workers has fallen, but that explanation does not survive contact with the actual data. Job openings over the past several years have more than doubled. Employers are hiring. The problem is not the demand for labor. It is what has happened to the supply side and to the machinery companies now use to process it. A few decades ago, hiring was a local and personal act. A company posted an advertisement in a newspaper. Applications arrived slowly. A manager read them one by one, called candidates in, and made a judgment based on conversation and instinct. The process had friction built into it, and that friction served a function. It meant that the pool of applicants for any given role was manageable, and that human judgment remained at the center of the decision. Online job platforms eliminated that friction entirely. A listing posted on Monday morning is visible to hundreds of thousands of people by Monday afternoon. Applying takes 30 seconds. There is no cost, no barrier, and no personal interaction. Because everyone understands that the odds of selection are extremely small, they send out more applications to compensate, which increases the pool further, which makes individual applications worth even less. Companies responded to this flood by automating the filter. Almost every major employer now uses applicant tracking systems, software that scans resumes and eliminates most of them before a human being ever reads a single word. These systems do not evaluate candidates. They hunt for keywords. If your resume does not contain the exact terminology used in the job description, or if your formatting confuses the algorithm, you are rejected automatically, regardless of your actual qualifications. The human judgment that used to sit at the beginning of the hiring process has been moved to the end, if it appears at all. Then there are the ghost jobs. In 2023, analysts found that nearly half of all job listings in the United States were positions companies never genuinely intended to fill. They existed to make the company appear to be growing, or to collect a pool of resumes for hypothetical future use, or because a listing had been posted while someone internally had already been selected. But legal compliance required the appearance of a fair public process. Millions of people spend hours writing cover letters, reformatting resumes, and completing multi-stage applications for roles that were never available. They receive no response, because there was never anyone there to respond. Escalation. The degree stops working. While the hiring process was breaking down, the economic foundation of the degree itself was being quietly undermined from a different direction. Artificial intelligence did not create this problem. it accelerated one that was already well underway. Since the financial crisis of 2008, sectors that historically absorbed large volumes of graduates have been steadily contracting their entry-level hiring. Investment banking reduced graduate intake by more than 10%. The legal sector followed a similar trajectory. Youth employment in finance and insurance fell 14% between 2010 and 2024. The entry-level tasks that used to represent the beginning of a graduate's career, data processing, document analysis, basic research, routine reporting, can now be performed by algorithms faster and at a fraction of the cost. This is where the Harvard graduate situation becomes clear. The jobs that a prestigious degree used to unlock most reliably are precisely the jobs that automation is eliminating first. Entry-level finance roles, junior legal positions, software development and data analytics, fields that a recent Indeed report identified as among the most at risk from AI displacement. The degree was most valuable as a ticket into these sectors. Those sectors are now partly closing the door. Global investment in artificial intelligence has exceeded $90 billion annually since 2022. That is not speculative future spending. That is money already deployed into systems that are actively replacing the work that new graduates used to be hired to perform. Meanwhile, technical certifications, coding boot camps, and online learning platforms have broken the university's historical monopoly on applied knowledge. 78% of young people in developed economies use digital tools daily, regardless of academic background. The degree no longer signals what it once did, that the person holding it has access to knowledge or skills unavailable to those without it. 91% of IT professionals in the United States and the United Kingdom reported fearing that AI will make their skills obsolete. That figure rose from 74% in a single year. Even workers already employed, already experienced, already established in their fields, are watching the ground shift beneath them. For a 22-year-old graduate entering this market with $150,000 of student debt, the calculus has changed entirely. Insight, what the system forgot. The deeper problem is not economic, it is cultural, and it runs in both directions. From the employer side, hiring has been reframed as a data problem to be optimized rather than a human judgment to be exercised. Applicant tracking systems, personality assessments, behavioral algorithms, and multi-stage online tests have progressively removed human discretion from the process. The candidates who succeed in this environment are not necessarily the best candidates. They are the ones who have learned to perform well for machines, who know which keywords to include, who understand how to answer scenario-based questions in ways that satisfy the algorithm. The employers who built these systems in search of efficiency have instead built systems that select for a very specific kind of test-passing intelligence, and then wonder why new hires struggle to solve real problems in real conditions. From the student side, the response to a contracting market has been credential accumulation. The assumption that more qualifications will eventually break through, more internships, more certifications, more postgraduate study on top of undergraduate debt. This generates a generation that is, in the precise words of economists, overqualified and underexperienced. They have the credentials. They do not have the professional practice. And the applicant tracking systems that control entry to the roles that would provide that practice are filtering them out before anyone with the authority to make an exception ever sees their name. 44% of the skills currently required for employment will need to be updated or replaced within 5 years. This is not a projection from an alarmed think tank. It is a consensus estimate across multiple labor research bodies. The 4-year degree was designed for a world where a body of knowledge remained relevant across a career. That world no longer reliably exists. By the time a business school graduate completes their program, the digital landscape they were trained to navigate has already materially changed. The graduates who do break through share a specific characteristic that no degree confers automatically: practical experience, acquired before graduation through internships, project work, or industry collaboration. Research on 2022 graduates found that those with completed internship experience were 23% more likely to secure full-time employment within their first 6 months. In some technical sectors, the advantage was even more pronounced. The degree does not disappear from this picture, but it functions differently, as a foundation rather than a guarantee, as a starting point rather than an end point. Conclusion: the real reckoning. Harvard is not getting empty because education stopped mattering. It is getting harder to fill because the return on investment that justified its cost has become genuinely uncertain in a way it never was before. Student debt in the United States now exceeds $1.7 trillion. For a 22-year-old graduating into a market where entry-level roles are being automated, hiring processes are being run by algorithms, and nearly half the job listings they apply to may not be real, that debt is not an investment in a guaranteed outcome. It is a bet in a game where the rules changed after they placed their chips. The bachelor's degree is not dead, but it has lost the automatic privilege that once made it the default answer to the question of what comes next. Its value now depends on what surrounds it: real professional experience, human skills that automation cannot replicate, and the willingness to keep learning in an environment that will demand that willingness continuously and permanently. The students who understand this early will build something durable. The institutions that fail to communicate it honestly will keep watching their enrollment numbers slide. The Harvard graduate in Atlanta eventually found her footing, but the fact that her story resonated with hundreds of thousands of people who recognized exactly what she was describing tells you everything about the moment we are in. Drop a comment telling us whether you think the degree is still worth it in 2026. Check the end screen for more breakdowns waiting for you.